Hey, let's chop up some more soul samples. Hey, what's up? I'm TC from TCMuze.com. I make videos to help new and beginner songwriters and beat makers make music more effectively and efficiently. Today, we're going to chop up some soul samples similar to the legendary QTip. Now, we're going to end up with something similar to what Tip would have created during his Midnight Marauder production period. But first, let's go through our source material and I'll show you how I made the samples that we're going to use. I wanted to take inspiration from Roberta Flack's Feel Like Making Love. So what I did is I made a sample that was inspired by that. Got the tempos, some of the drums that are similar, and then listened to the instrumentation and tried to mimic that in my own creation. Let's take a listen to what I came up with. Now, what I did to accomplish that was I pulled up a Wurlitzer emulation in my Kontakt instruments, actually pulled out some live guitars and bass and played that there. After I played everything in, let's take a quick look and see how I processed it. So the first thing that I did was I threw in a saturation plugin to emulate some tape saturation. Next thing I did was I pulled up basically a master bus compressor. The next thing I did was pulled up an EQ, rolled off some of the top, rolled off some of the low, pulled down a little bit of the mid-range. Then I threw a limiter on there just to give it a squeeze and bring up some of the volume. Now, one of the things that Tip was known for was that he would use sample drum breaks also. So he would use samples from multiple sources. Yeah, so the next thing I tried to do was come up with a drum break of my own, something similar to Little Miss Lover. Yeah, Little Miss Lover from Jimi Hendrix. It came out okay, but the only part that I decided to use was this last part. I'll play you that. And that's only because the first 6 bars that I made didn't sound that great. So let's listen to the last 2 bars of the drum break that I made that I decided were pretty decent to use. All right, now that we got our source material, let's jump into the composition. Now, the first thing that I decided to do was take my melodic sample, drop it in a Kontakt, and chop it up. I use quarter note chops. I lined up the BPMs here. 92 BPM was the original source material, so it just chops it nice in a quarter note fashion. Threw it across the range of the keyboard here. And then I decided to pitch it down maybe about 3 semitones there. Did the same thing here with the drum break. Let's see, brought that up. Did the same thing, chopped it, as you can see, in quarter notes, and then spread it across the keyboard here. So what I decided to do was use the first half of the sample, cut out the part where I was singing, and then switch up to a higher part or a later part of the sample. So let's go ahead and program in the sequence. Oh yeah, I quantized this. However, I did the same thing as always, only quantized in at, no. For this one, I quantized at 100% because I had already programmed in live instrumentation, so it kind of gives it a little swing automatically. So I'll just keep it right on the grid and let the groove that's already in the sample translate to my reprogramming. Hey guys, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, please take a moment to like and subscribe. All right, let's get back to it. Cool, now that we have that in, the next thing I want to do is program my hi-hats. I'm going to reset my quantize, put it at 70%. That way I can have a bit of a human feel to the parts that I play in. Cool, the next thing that we want to do is program in our kick and snare. Once again, we're going to change the quantize, make sure the triplet is on so we get a little bit of a swing with our programming. All right, the next thing we want to do is layer in another kick to get a little bit more bottom. You can tell that our first kick is kind of thin. It has more of a punch than it does a low end thump. So let's program in something to take care of that low end for the kick. All right, let's do the same thing for the snare. All right, let's put in a bass line. All right, last thing we're gonna do is throw in those cymbals from the drum sample. I just put in a high pass filter, a low cut if you wanna call it, and I pulled it all the way up and took out all the bottoms in the mid that just left me with this top end. So I'm gonna use that as like an alternative section. Like if you ever heard any Tribe songs, you know that they throw in those ride cymbals intermittently, sometimes within the hooks. So let's just go ahead and program that in. All right, now that we have everything programmed in, put together a little sequence, I'm gonna just let it ride out. Catch y'all next time.